Let's see if we can go through the over our panel in no particular order, and describe the most pivotal moments of the past decade, and certainly those that led us to where we are today. So maybe I can pick on Vance. Vance, what are some of those pivotal moments of the past few years?
Sure. So I'm appreciating that you've given us that decade timeline, because it just still kind of fits in this the 2012 Getting Accountability Right paper that the federal office, Alberta and BC kind of jointly created. So I was having a discussion with some folks from the UK, from the UK ICO the other day, just about another project entirely, and we were discussing what kind of things should be in it, and we got to accountability, and they kind of just threw out this idea that accountability, you're from Canada, that's the home of accountability. I kind of like, it's kind of interesting that's the global perspective here is that that 2012 paper of how to get accountability right with the privacy management program is still so relied upon and so respected, even a solid decade later. So when we're just having these discussions about operationalizing privacy, it's kind of I'm always slightly stunned that we're having the discussions about how to do it because we've had a manual out for a solid decade now. And just from my experience at regulators, like that's if something goes wrong, that's the first thing that always gets asked for. It's like, show me your actual privacy management program. And quite often those are some of the main failings that are found in like breach investigations. We've seen issues like security safeguards kind of being passed verbally at staff meetings, and that kind of leading to significant breaches because, again, you don't have a program established, so therefore you can't revise it, you can't see how effective it is, you can't measure it, you can't really audit it. And again, you just have these major issues that come up simply because of that lack of privacy management program. So I guess, again, I'm torn on saying whether or not that's it's a pivotal moment in the past decade. It certainly should have been a pivotal moment in the past decade, but I'm kind of curious to hear from some of the people who have more experience within organizations of how much is that actually the case? How much of an impact did that guidance actually have?
Excellent. Why don't we go to Constantine, since he's seen organizations on both sides of the border and probably beyond. What are your views, Constantine?
Well, over the last decade, and again, contrasting, developments in Europe as well as in the US, I guess when you ask me what's the state of privacy in Canada over the last, say, 10 years, I would say complacency tinged with increasing amounts of fear and loathing. And the complacency because we did so well really early on. We got the pat on the back from the Europeans, we got adequacy. And then a lot of nothing has happened. Now, of course, provinces passed laws. So that did move the things forward. But, too many companies still have today a privacy policy on their website, and that's their only privacy policy. And it regurgitates the 10 principles of PIPEDA. Regurgitating the law is not a statement that actually helps people understand what it is you're doing with data. So what else is the problem? I see a lot of people who are typically general counsel, but they might be CIOs or CISOs on whom the organization has decided you're in charge of privacy. And they know that they don't have enough background and experience. They've been had something, another 10 or 15% added to already a 150% job. And they know that they're not able to deal with what's really required. So it's not complacency so much as just hoping that nothing bad happens, which is to Vance's point about what happens when you finally start getting attention. And that's, sort of like always been whenever you have an incident, bad news, you've had a breach. Good news, you've had a breach, because now you're going to actually focus on building the program because now you have no choice. But why does it always come to that, right? So I do feel that there's still a lot of room for Canadian companies to improve. And I think also the runway for them to actually do that is getting shorter and shorter, which is what's leading to the fear and loathing. And I'll
to your point, Constantine, going back to the breach, right? We've had this mandate. There's different provincial legislation in different sectors. They've had the mandate of breach. How many companies we go in and they go, oh, well, security records incidents. Well, where's your breach log? Where is your data incident breach register? And they don't know what we're talking about.
Yes. Yeah.
So what?
Sorry.
I was just going to say. So Amalia, since you piped up, you're now on the spot. Tell us about those pivotal moments.
Well, I mean, to me, that was, to Vance's point, we had a manual for 10 years. And I'm not sure if it was written with invisible ink or where the company's at for that. But Constantine was saying, people post a privacy notice that is oftentimes incomplete or gives you kind of pause to realize the kinds of gaps that this company might have, and they publicly put it on the website. So you realize from that one statement of trust that they put online that they have so many gaps in that one statement that you don't even want to imagine what's happening inside the company.
A dead giveaway, Amalia, is when they've copied mine and forgotten to actually remove.
Yes, yeah, that's that. They didn't even give you
no royalties,
royalties or some sort of acknowledgement, duly copied from Constantine.
It counts as attribution when you don't bother to do a replace all. Right?
Yes.
I mean, they take it as a compliment.
Yes. May not be terribly impressive to anybody coming across it. But
and just really quickly on this privacy notice, because there's been a very interesting conversation on LinkedIn yesterday that people are like, well, it's a privacy policy, it's a privacy notice, it's a duck, it's a privacy online notice, and it is a promise that you make to your customers of how the state of your affairs inside your privacy program. If that promise is poorly written and lopsided, that there's no better impression than the first impression. But that promise you have on the privacy online notice has to be mirrored inside the company with a privacy program, hence our Getting Accountability Right paper. And maybe I'll let Derek talk a little bit more about that.
Thank you. In terms of pivotal moments, I have to say the Cambridge Analytica it really woke the public up. And I think that while we've had this manual, you so aptly point to, Vance, I believe that without the motivation, so either enforcement or consumer pressure is what it's going to take for companies to actually take action, because companies have so many priorities going on at any given time. Adding a major one like privacy without a damn good reason is difficult. So I believe Cambridge Analytica started to wake the public up to what is actually being done with their data. And I think it really cracked a whole It changed privacy, in my opinion, around the world. And then obviously GDPR coming in has made a significant impact. You can argue the good and the bad of it, but it's a law designed to protect people's data. And I think I think our first effort with Bill C11, as Vince aptly pointed out with his 60 recommendations for change, they called it a balanced approach, but that thumb was heavily on the scale in favor of business. The fact is, our government does not want to cause any inconvenience to business. And what we're not realizing is we should not have been doing this in the first place. So the changing of the practices, yes, it's inconvenient for businesses, but it's a long overdue cleanup. And I believe what's going to make the difference this year is Bill 64 will be enforced. And I believe that is going to wake an awful lot of companies up and get them in action regarding privacy management programs.
Excellent.
And setting the tone, right, Derek? Because they're setting such a high bar.
Yes. Yes, it's actually tougher. I've had this conversation several times with both clients and on webinars. It's actually tougher than the GDPR in some aspects. Mm-hmm. For example, on the consent front, with GDPR, most business in the EU is done under legitimate interests. And, one of the things I noticed is that Quebec left that off. So the only two choices you have are contractual or consent.
Yeah.
So what's the impact of that? Is that going to drive people back to more what I call traditional advertising? Because you can't use people's personal data online anymore. It's going to be interesting because if I were some companies, I would take less risk, use less data, and go back to more traditional ways of promoting the brand.
It's certainly going to be interesting. I definitely agree with you on that. And by and large, there's a sense of, based on what you've all said, there's a sense that we've literally been lucky. Businesses in Canada have been lucky over the past decade and a half, getting by doing the bare minimum in some cases, or perhaps even less. And I certainly find myself talking to companies about the difference in simple terminology. What's the difference between a policy versus a privacy notice?
Yes.
Right? Just knowing that simple foundational element can help you better prepare for compliance.